culminates in this. Hong Kong Attitude squaring off against another local team from Taiwan, Nova Esports, starting things off on night markets.
It's going to be both teams moving through with the Ryan Goats variation of Doomfist on both sides, and both One and Perfect have found pretty good success
Nice
so
smack
far.
onto Shylin, but it's Perfect finding more success, already picking up the 2. And with that, Hong Kong Attitude should just look to run down the rest. In fact, Perfect even getting the kill credit on his counterpart in 1. That's going to give Hong Kong Attitude a dominating position over this point as it unlocks.
That's the opening litmus test as well. How well can you play Doomfist against the other team? We've seen One do incredibly well against other teams. We've seen Perfect as well dismantle their competition. But right now, it's all about Perfect. He's in the lead. Hong Kong Attitude have capped.
Curiously, the only major lead Hong Kong Attitude have is in the defensive ultimates from the 2 supports. As this next fight breaks out, it is still going to be determined more by the other ultimates available. In fact, there's going to be none coming up because the Pixie start to come right out. Now it's trying to get into the thick of the fight onto the back line of Restia and Co. Not quite finding the damage there, and a Ting finally going down. A couple of counter trades and finding those ultimates do come out from the former VK. He gets shut down, and they were a little bit overextended in there, but this has been all far away from the point.
And this is where Hong Kong Attitude start to cash in on that early ult charge as well. Perfect going down early though, not going to help them out. He did have that meteor strike available.
That's really interesting. Mango's Transcendence, it came up, it's been used, it's run out, and it wasn't enough still to stall out the fight longer for Hong Kong Attitude to stabilize. So Nova steered themselves through a very protracted engagement to get this point.
It's 39% in the lead for Hong Kong Attitude as well. Use a few ultimates like you mentioned there. And Nova, they have more going into this next fight. They can cash those in now as well. They should be able to even up progression very soon.
He certainly likes to think so, and that's going to be very early commitment out of both Nexus and a Ting, and neither quite getting the better of it. Perfect on the back line, not quite finding anything for himself. Takes a punch from 1, but blues the open casualty. This Hong Kong Attitude starts to run away with the kills. The grab out to try and get some kills back though, only finds Perfect and a Ting. It's still Nova bleeding at the mouth in terms of members, and it should be Hong Kong Attitude wresting control of the point back.
This is where Hong Kong Attitude do have the player advantage here. 37%, not quite enough to overtake from Hong Kong Attitude's lead, and they will now continue taking that timer up. And for Hong Kong Attitude, waiting for the next couple of ults to come online. Nova Esports, they spent a lot in that last fight. It was a big, big loss for them. They have to catch up now.
Nova 2 kind of have the saving grace of coming back up on Nexus's Earth Shadow. Remember, he and a Ting committed those at the same time. Plus, Oyo is getting a Transcendence to match Mango Jai. Nova 2 have a decent shot here, but naturally it comes to execution. Perfect. Taking some chunks. That's going to be Transcendence out from both Zenyatas, in fact. Big shatter coming out though. That's paying off, but they haven't quite got the kills. Only just barely getting a Ting now, but that's a Reinhardt dead. That's a big wound for Hong Kong Attitude, and you see them already going into retreat.
This is the second time Hong Kong Attitude try and take a fight in close quarters away from the cap, and it's gone poorly for them. Now, you don't necessarily want to fight at the cap when you have control, but they are getting baited into big shatters. Nexus came down at the same time as Ting, and his one was much bigger.
Big lead that they had though was that grab, but finding CQB, oh, never mind all that. Perfect slam dunks it if those 3 kills prior weren't enough to go by. Gong rings out, so despite getting that 1 decent kill on CQB, the grab, more than enough for Hong Kong Attitude.
And Hong Kong Attitude have not been behind on progress for this entire opening round either, consistently in the lead. They're in final fight territory now. They only need to win 1 more to get this initial point going into the rest of the league jump.
Now this is kind of Nova's last chance here. They've got a barrel for that point as well. Do need to make sure they get on it, are making that move now. Crazy S taking chunks.
Solo barrier.
Oh no, bumped off the side. Nice catch by CQB. Nova do slip the point away, but they're still in a 5 versus 6 now. Far worse than that, a 3 versus 6. And it does feel like the writing is on the wall. Oyo pop, Nexus to fall. Blue goes down. Nobody left on the point as Hong Kong Attitude re-grab at 99% to hopefully close out our first part of Lijiang Tower.
You have Hong Kong Attitude going back-to-back as well. Full 6-man team wipes. And it was that second to last one that really cost Nova Esports. Couldn't get enough counter trades. Couldn't stop Hong Kong Attitude from sitting up in that close choke hold to stop Nova Esports from being able to safely rotate onto point. You even saw towards the end there, members taking a lot of damage as they're trying to touch that cap. Members, Restia specifically, using a sound barrier that only landed on himself. Nova Esports fell apart right at the end when they needed not to.
It does feel like we're seeing Hong Kong Attitude, at least on that night markets, getting a little bit more mileage out of the ultimates they do get to land and commit compared to Nova. However, Nova are winning a good number of fights where they're actually behind in ultimates and ultimate charge.
And last night we criticized Hong Kong Attitude to say so far they've been winning only through recovery tactics. They've never really been in the lead so far. This time, though, they've always been in the lead. Going into control center, now it's perfect back onto the Mei. And if you can get success here, this might be a very difficult game for Nova.
This has worked now 2 matches in a row for them and is already starting to work on a third one as they found out Blue there. Good trade back though, you take Perfect out of the picture and things start to get just that little bit easier. Nexus low though, if he goes down they're in big trouble and Fire Strike's gonna scoop it up. Nice placement by a Ting. With that Nova, gonna have to start forcing that retreat out. One even getting picked on that and Restia to boot. That's Hong Kong Attitude getting the start they need.
And it was all even until one realistically went down as well. He's got a lot of firepower on his side. If he gets some more counter trades in Nova's favor, Nova can definitely take that cap away. Hong Kong Attitude now, this is where that Mei really counts. The ice walls blocking that entrance is exactly how Hong Kong Attitude have been spawn camping every other team.
But that's the thing, they've done it now twice in a row. Every other team. Surely Nova have a plan for this. They must be expecting something like this.
And they'll have to just try and go forward here. One's going to bait some members out. This might open things up for Nova to get through.
Or it's going to open things up for Hong Kong Attitude to extend the lead. They kill one and then they trap 4 members. They find Nexus, likely to find both Blue and Oyo here. No sweat off the brow and even getting a rundown on Crazy S.
You saw there as well, Nova had a pretty decent push through. One died maybe a little bit too quickly there. 4 of the members made it past the wall. 1 member got caught behind the wall. The other issue is Hong Kong Attitude have not been forced to use ultimates. If they did drop some ults here, Nova would be in the lead. But that's just not the case going into the next fight.
It appears they're trying to use one to find a pick on the flank, break things open that way. It's just not worked so far. Nice isolation on the side to keep one out of the picture as well as the rest are stuck in the grab. Now Blue goes down, still in that 5v6. This time though, pulling back without losing any more members. Wall back into spawn. Nearly caught Nexus out, but unfortunately one not going to be able to make it back. Ooh,
oh,
nice.
He's good. They only lost 1 member throughout all of that, so it was solo grab for 1 kill. And for Nova now, they know they're in the lead. They know they got ults. Got to make it past that wall.
Oh, that's a bit of a rough one. A Ting just didn't get anything because of Perfect's wall. But neither did Nexus's. And now with that Blizzard running, they're having a very hard time getting up in the business of Hong Kong Attitude grab as well. Just to help secure things out. Crazy S not really finding it. So that was Crazy S's grab actually, and it didn't really secure anything at all.
Now, this is a problematic section now, 89% and still counting up. Hong Kong Attitude have finally let go of the gas pedal slightly. They're waiting for respawners. Nova know that they have to go now. Nova know it's the last chance.
But they're in a grab. You do get Restia able to slip through to get onto the point, but by the time the rest of the team is free, a couple of them are already
double
dead.
shatter.
It's not looking great. Double shatter, and it turns out Restia was the only one left at the end there. The last casualty, the gong rings out. So the second map goes to a shutout as Hong Kong Attitude kick off Lijiang Tower 2-0. Open the series up 1-0.
You see that as well, Hong Kong Attitude just snowballing that map away from Nova Esports ever so slowly. Even if Nova could eventually break through, they're down in time so significantly, they're down in progress so significantly. They would be fighting from a significant deficit, 100-0 on that control center, much like we've seen on Hong Kong Attitude's control centers across the tournament.
And I mean, here's the thing you'd have to consider about Hong Kong Attitude on Lijiang Tower here. Maybe they're just always going to win Control Center with that Mei strat one way or another. Once it does get going, it doesn't seem to stop. And all we've ever seen is a team stop it from getting going for a while and still not the entire map. That's what we saw last night in their semi-final. You've got to win the other two. And Nova didn't win Night Market. That kind of put the writing on the wall in itself.
And the problem is, when you start to look at the semi-finals as well, Phoenix had a much better showing on Lijiang, across the entire Lijiang, than Nova have right now. Now, this is only one map to sort of draw conclusions from. It's a small sample size of one that we have so far, but when you start to look at how other teams have performed versus Hong Kong Attitude that have then gone on to lose to Hong Kong Attitude, 0-3 no less, things are not off to a great start for Nova, who do need a bit of an early lead as the underdogs going into the series.
Now, that being said, Nova did drop the control map against Cyclone Coupling last night. That was on Busan. And again, there were parts that were certainly a bit more competitive. They did have a very strong showing, especially on Mecha Base. But on the whole, it was when they actually played the Goats with the Doomfist in that variation. That was actually when they had the least success, curiously. No, that's a complete lie. I've got that completely the other way around. That was actually when they had the most success. That was when they did get the shutout against Cyclone Coupling on Mecha Base. But I do have a point here, and that's that Cyclone Coupling do play such a variety of team compositions. That was actually probably the only time Nova could really get ahead of them in terms of team comp. Hong Kong Attitude, you know mostly what they're going to play here, but it may just be that Hong Kong Attitude can play all those team comps better than Nova can counter them.
The other thing is, Hong Kong Attitude is the exact opposite in terms of play style compared to Cyclone Coupling, who do not want to play the 3-3 goats, who want to try and spread out horizontally as much as they can across a variety of compositions, like you mentioned, a variety of different heroes as well. That was something Nova was very well equipped in that semi-final to eventually win 3-2. Still a very difficult matchup for them. Hong Kong Attitude, very different team. They like to play specific comps, very singular in many cases, like to stick to goats for a lot of times. Well, only recently do we see Perfect flexing out on Doomfist a lot more. In the other 5 weeks of the seasons, they basically didn't do that at all. So for Hong Kong Attitude, they have a set May strategy that they use on Control Center, that they always use on Control Center, that every team should come to expect. Still, though, teams have not found a way to beat that. Hong Kong Attitude is a readable team. You know what they're going to play, but the issue is, can you beat it even though you know it?
And that's the thing as well. I mean, even to speak to a bit of a smaller facet of that, this Doomfist variation of goats has been a lot of teams' answer to the straight Rhine goats, and even in some instances the Winston goats, and that is true of Nova. That was partly why they won Mecha Base, was because Cyclone Coupling, one of the few situations that they ever do, were running a straight goats. In fact, they ran both the Winston and the Reinhardt on that map at different points, if I'm not mistaken. But they can't quite seem to have that same success in the mirror of that team composition. They don't quite have a counter for that works out just yet. So like you said, even if you know what they're going to pull out, you actually still need to have something to deal with it or be able to best it in the mirror.
And now for now, get to pick map number 2, which is going to be the hybrid game mode as well. Before we head into map number 2, let's go and find out how hybrid works.
Welcome to Eichenwald. This is hybrid. 2 teams face off as either defenders or attackers. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to first capture a payload and then escort it along a set path containing 2 checkpoints. To capture the payload, the attackers need to stand within its range for a set amount of time. Defenders can delay capture progress by also standing in range. The attackers must work together to clear away the defenders. If successful, they score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby. To get moving again, the attackers must clear away the defenders by force. If even one attacker is capturing the objective or on the payload when the time runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared away or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
Map number 2 coming up is going to be Numbani here, selected by Nova Esports, who now are in a position where they are down 1 in terms of map scores in this grand final best of 7, first to 4 map wins. So something needs to give now. They do need to start bringing things back around, or else Hong Kong Attitude might just be steamrolling their way through, snowballing their way to victory.
This was the map they took us to yesterday after they dropped that opening control to Cyclone Coupling. That was where they were able to pick up a win and tie things up in that series. Maybe they'll have the same success here, but I've got to say, Hong Kong Attitude themselves have played their fair share of Numbani, and have looked absolutely devastating on it.
Would you look at that as we're about to open gates here? It's actually Hong Kong Attitude bringing out a new composition that we have not quite seen here. Of course, we are on patch 1.30. Ash is enabled, and Perfect wants to play.
It's a bit of a variation of what we've actually seen quite a bit of. Only we've often seen a Sombra, or sometimes we've seen a Widowmaker. This time it's going to be the Ash to come out. And I'm very curious to see how Perfect is on this character.
So far, it's a pretty decent pick because one has started out of the fire as well. So decent read by them, especially if you get an opening pick.
That does really help things a lot. Nova's sat as they are on the point. One does actually win the dogfight against Shailin, but honestly, CQB's going to have a far easier time committing that res than Oyo is. VK pops out of the mech, though. Not out of the woods just yet here for Hong Kong Attitude, and one, low as he is, hasn't been finished off by anyone.
And notably, Perfect's been alive this entire time as well, so there's always been a singular DPS threat, whether that's Shailin or Perfect, and Hong Kong Attitude still have members to contest.
Crazy S got back in his mech, so did VK though. I think the real tell though was to pick on Oyo. A team will be able to get back into this fight. We've still got Shailin in the mix here with CQB in the pocket, the same as Not True for one, who we did see get shot out by Perfect. So despite the 2/3, Hong Kong Attitude were able to hold on and get just enough picks in the relatively even trades to re-aggress onto the point and push Nova off it.
And that 2/3 was claimed in the time that Shailin was down. CQB could not find that resurrection, had to wait for the full respawns. Hong Kong Attitude, however, had the closer respawns, so Nova needed to finish Perfect. They needed to remove the other threats and finish that cap. This time around, though, if they do manage to get those kills, they will cap straight away.
It's going to be a little bit harder now. Bob does provide that little bit of area control on the point. It doesn't affect one so much, but it's certainly going to affect the likes of Blue, Restia, and Nexus, who were likely going to be a little bit more on the ground, or particularly Crazy S. Just looking for the opening picks now as Valkyrie popped by CQB and a Nano Boost onto the scene, who also pops the Primal. So a lot committed now from Hong Kong Attitude. Bob is going to come out onto the payload as well, and it's all just warding Nova off, but with no deaths yet.
It's been a big commitment from Hong Kong Attitude as well. 4 ultimates in there. They're starting to win this fight, and Nova Esports are starting to go backwards, but they are not making any ground.
Nexus went in really deep to try and pressure out Perfect. Perfect had no trouble getting away, just popped off the high ground, then Coach Gun straight back. Nexus ended up in too deep, ends up having to go off the edge as well to reset. And meanwhile, the tanks of Hong Kong Attitude absolutely wiped the floor on the point.
The unfortunate thing for Nova as well, as they do start to change their composition onto more classic goats, the Winston variety of the 3-3, they threw away all their ultimates. They don't get back, they don't bank up that lead. And for Hong Kong Attitude, Perfect's already used Bob, but he's already on 76.
It's absolutely unbelievable. Coming up to 90 will definitely have it for this next push that Nova are making onto the point. And again, that area control from Bob is really important, especially now that Nova are on full goats.
Nova don't really have a good way to contest Shailin, so this next fight, very important.
Already picking out Oyo in that rotation, so huge. Might even be able to hold on to Bob. When you look at how low everyone is, being solo here by Restia, I was going to say the AoE from Dynamite would be dynamite here.
You have Nova, who just have to run off the map right now. They don't have a good way to actually recontest or actually regroup with their team. This has been a complete waste of time for them. If you have members caught in rotation, like a support, notably on Oyo, and then have another support member go down straight away, that's already too many members down. That's already a scenario where Hong Kong Attitude have a guaranteed fight win. 30 seconds lost for that misplay, and for Nova now, don't have any more ultimates, are not closer to those ultimates, and in a pretty bad spot.
That's the thing, even if they lost that fight, they needed to charge up ultimates. That's where they
another one down.
Another pick on Oyo as they make the rotation, and it's the same disaster for Nova. History repeating. They don't really have time to retreat here, and they can't risk losing other people in the rotation.
But the good news is, this time around, they don't lose an extra member. They don't have to run off the map. They can just wait for one respawner. Oyo's coming back on the Ana as well. Wants to make use of that Bionade. It's 4 ultimates, nearly 5 and 6 on for Hong Kong Attitude as they look to maybe full hold 8.
They were able to taxi them back with Restia, but Restia immediately picked by Perfect, and now on the point itself, things absolutely fall to pieces for Nova. Really struggled their way through that one, and I respect the change they made. They made it at the right point, had just enough time, but unfortunately, losing Oyo in the rotation meant they couldn't even get ultimates charging up where they would have crucially needed for that final fight.
And the thing is, you have a scenario where around the 2-minute mark where you are Nova Esports and you're starting to think this is not going well for us offensively, we need to make some changes. We maybe want to go back to the standard goats, a little bit more consistent, find a way to deal with Perfect first. Shailin, we can't really touch. We'll have to find a different way to deal with that. And for Nova, though, consistently not able to get in position to even start a fight because they are losing members time and time again. Never having that full 6v6 to even charge their ultimates. That's the hardest part because you have a new composition, you're fresh on ults, you need to get those ults, but you now have no time.
It also meant that Hong Kong Attitude could just play out the numbers advantage and, importantly, the healing advantage and conserve ultimates of their own. Could not have gone worse for Nova in that second to last fight, unfortunately, but things aren't over yet because in an earlier fight they did have a bit of success. They got that 84 on the point. Hong Kong Attitude, they can't just get the 1/3 and walk off like you normally would with a full hold, so there is still a good chance for Nova here to fully hold themselves, bring us to a tie.
And regardless, though, we are going to see a very quick map. Not going to see B or C on Numbani. And for Hong Kong Attitude, they have the time to work with 4 minutes to get 84.4%. Means that even if they fail a few pushes, they can change comps, they can readdress this defense. Nova can't really do the same thing, so they don't want to take too much of a risk. They're just going to play the Winston Ghost. This time around, they're already set up on point. They can't lose anyone on rotation again.
That's the thing. I mean, all it also takes is only one loss here, one fight loss.
Oh, they already have a split member.
That's so huge. Isolating Crazy S, who was just sitting around to scout. That's already a 5 versus 6. Nova has the closer respawn though, and Hong Kong Attitude are just getting to the point now though, taking quite a slow rotation.
Hong Kong Attitude should be able to find a lot of pressure here. They got to find that next pick. Nexus in a lot of trouble.
Restia as well, taking some pain against Perfect on the point. Now they brawl out. Blue's already down as well. Now Restia in trouble. They don't quite finish him off, but Crazy S has only just come back in.
This is
on
already
the
too many
They're
kills.
not getting any kills in response. Mango Jylova gets topped off. The only casualty is VK's mech, and it's looking like it's going to be a one and done here for Hong Kong Attitude. Nova might try and stall it out, but I don't think they had the members. Nexus tries to go for it, dies instantaneously, and Hong Kong Attitude absolutely domineering start to this grand finals, now 2-0.
Absolutely outclassing Nova Esports here on our opening 2 maps of this grand finals. This is now a very difficult place for Nova. Look at that 2-0, and not just any 2-0, not a single point from Nova in the series. 0-2 versus an 0-1, then on the binding as well. That was a full completed hold onto A with a newer comp that we haven't quite seen, at least from Hong Kong Attitude before. And for Nova as well, you could definitely see it on their faces, they went prepared.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, what we were just talking about after Lijiang Tower with Hong Kong Attitude having that bit of predictability, at least compared to Cyclone Coupling, yes, that is absolutely true. They don't just shift things up suddenly mid-match. Oh, now they're playing Tracer, now they're playing this. It's not this constant game of catch-up chess, right? They are a little bit more predictable, but at the same time, this is the grand finals. If there are any strats they've been holding on to, this is when we'll see them, and that does indeed seem to be what is happening. Lijiang Tower, I felt there were still glimmers of hope for Nova, especially on that night market, but everything beyond that started to become a wash.
What you see from here is all Mango Jai, I believe. It's actually VK who started on the Ana, throws a sleep dart out where he believes that maybe a member will be trying to scout, and indeed, a member was trying to scout. Stays on the Ana while the sleep is there. They clean up the mech, then he'll instantly change off onto his own diva, and then they will move in. So an absolutely amazing, fantastic pick to be able to start that offense off, and the worst possible scenario for Nova to be in for that defense.
And made so much better by the fact that you got the Sombra, you get the hack in there. There is like no chance the Diva's getting out. Even if she wasn't hacked, extremely slim chance, but maybe, just maybe. I mean, it could not, like you said, could not have been more perfect. And I kind of want to revisit what I was saying just a moment ago, where like, there were parts of Lijiang Tower that felt genuinely competitive. You can call Control Center an outlier because that is just that Mei strat. Hong Kong Attitude have done that to just about every team they've used that against.
They've beaten every team too.
Exactly. This is something else altogether. This is a full hold and then a single fight push and cap. Like, that's one-sided. There's no two ways about that.
And an insanely huge punish as well on both ends. I mean, we kind of half joked at they're starting on the defense, so there's no way they lose anybody on rotation because they're already on the point, but they lose someone right off the bat again. No contest. It was just another 6 versus 5 that for Hong Kong Attitude very, very methodically steamrolled their way through, converted that into another kill. As soon as you had Craziest respawning as a diva, somebody else went down. They just kept that pressure on, and for Hong Kong Attitude, not letting go rewards them with a very quick 2 maps in a row.
I really liked the discipline as well. You saw after they killed off Crazy S, they still went for the same long rotation that they were going to make anyway. Instead of just going, okay, we've got a numbers advantage, barreled towards the point. I liked that they still played patient, knowing that they would have just enough time before Crazy S got back to the point to find something, or at least get into a favorable position for a 6 versus 6. I like it. Like you said, playing it very methodically, playing it very sensibly, and absolutely paying off.
And this is the veterancy we see coming out of this team. You see how prepared they are. You see how experienced they are. You see how they're able to catch Nova off guard. And the opposite, just unfortunately, so far is not true.
And now I'm curious as to where Nova are going to take us going into Assault. They have made this map pick before. This was back in their quarterfinal against GE Pantheon. They lost the hybrid. They got to pick the Assault. But I'm not sure, right? I'm just genuinely not sure. We've seen bunker compositions and the like. We've seen Hong Kong Attitude specifically actually crumble against a lot of Bastion bunkers. There is the opportunity for Nova to take us to Horizon Lunar Colony where that's a factor, but I mean, the ace up their sleeve of Numbani didn't pay off. Maybe Assault won't pay off either. I think there's got to be something even more special in the tank for these guys.
What we are also seeing is some level of mirror compositions happening. Not perfectly. We do have, of course, a May on one side and Doomfist on the other side for Control Center.
Yeah.
But let's also go back to Night Market. That was a complete mirror.
Yeah.
Let's also look at Numbani for that original defense. It was outside of the Ash, a Farah Mercy composition on both sides that was essentially a mirror. But the point of this is the fact that we do also see a case where Nova one-to-one in these mirrors or even close mirrors are just clearly, unfortunately, it just has to be said, kind of being outclassed here.
Yeah.
One is being, you know, when we look at the Doomfist on Night Market, Perfect definitely had his number there. When we look at across the other maps as well, the other rounds, you have, aside from that one kill on Shailin in the air as a Farah, the Farah comp, unfortunately, coming through for Nova, just not as good.
And I think actually Night Market stands as a great litmus test for exactly that reason, right? It was that perfect mirror. And it's also been Nova's most competitive showing so far tonight across all the stages of all the maps that we've seen so far. And I think that's very important. I mean, I don't think they're completely and utterly outclassed. I think this is still within the realms of achievable. Night Market was only a couple of fights away from going the way of Nova instead of Hong Kong Attitude. But Nova do need to start winning those fights, or they're eventually just going to get swept out of this final.
And we're 2 maps down here in this best of 7 or first of 4, which means we still have the potential of at least 2 more maps, if not even more, coming up after the break when we resume the grand finals of Overwatch Contenders Pacific Season 3.